How to play Ironwood. In the dueling board game Ironwood, two asymmetric factions battle for power. The Ironclads, settlers from the Iron Mountains, want to extract the mysterious Larimore Crystals to harness their magical power and fuel their machines. The Woodwalkers, shadowy figures of the forests, need the crystals to uncover ancient totems which will allow them to summon the Forest Guardian and destroy the Ironclads. Ironwood is a tactical, card-driven game. Each round, both sides play cards to position combat units, gain crystals or engage in battles. In this video I'll take you through each part of the game step by step. Now just a quick heads up, you might notice a bit of a German accent and some of my translations might sound funny here and there. But don't worry, it won't stop you from following along and learning how to play. Ironwood is played in rounds with alternating turns, with the Woodwalker player always going first. Each turn usually involves playing one card from your hand. Each round has three phases: the preparation phase, the action phase and the end of round phase. The Woodwalkers move within and between forests, aiming to discover, collect and secure totems from the mountains. Securing a third totem wins them the game. The Ironclads move across mountains and through tunnels, using their drill to excavate crystals to build forges. To set up a forge, they first need to establish a foundation at the site. Building the third forge grants the Ironclads an instant victory. Now that you have a rough overview, we can dive into the details. To start, we'll go through the setup. First, decide who will play which faction, and then arrange the game board accordingly. If you're sitting side by side, it makes sense for the Ironclad player to sit on the left and the Woodwalker player on the right. Make sure you're using the two-player side of the board, as there's also a solo version. The same goes for your player boards. Next, each player needs his faction's 3 base cards, which are marked with a star. These form your starting hand. You'll also need to take your faction's special cards to form your faction deck. Shuffle this deck and place it face down to the left of your player board. Now the setup varies depending on which faction you're playing. As the Woodwalker chieftain, take the 4 vision cards, each of which shows one of the central mountains on the board and 3 crystals in the top left corner. Shuffle these cards, draw 1 to keep in your hand and keep it strictly secret. Shuffle the remaining 3 vision cards with the other vision cards, then place the entire stack face down on your player board. Now get your fighters ready. Place 2 units in each forest area along the edge of the board. Keep the remaining fighters and the 5 wooden totems in your player area. As the Ironclad commander, place the drill on the location Ferrum along with 1 fighter. Place 3 more units in each of the 4 locations adjacent to Ferrum. Put all forges on your player board, place a marker on the starting position of the drill track and keep the remaining fighters and golems next to your board. Lastly, set up a generous supply for the white marker cubes and crystals. And with that, you're ready to start the game. Each round always begins with the preparation phase. Both players receive crystals. The Woodwalkers get 1 and the Ironclads receive 2. At the start of each round, you always have at least your 3 base cards in hand. Both players then draw 2 cards from the special deck. In the first round, you may draw 4 and choose 2 to keep, shuffling the other 2 back into the deck. By the end of the preparation phase, you should have at least 5 action cards in your hand. If your draw deck ever runs out, shuffle the discard pile to form a new draw deck. The same applies to the vision cards, though it's a very rare occurrence. If there are any markers on the game board, remove them now. If you have markers on ongoing action cards, remove 1 from each card and carry out any corresponding effects. Do this in turn order, starting with the Woodwalker. The action phase is played alternately in turns, with the Woodwalker always being the starting player. In each turn, you choose 1 card from your hand and place it below your player board from left to right until both players have played 3 turns and there's normally 3 cards by the end of the round. Action cards include both your base cards and the special cards from the draw deck. Almost everything you do in Ironwood revolves around these action cards, so let's take a closer look at them. On the top right of the Ironclad cards and the top left of the Woodwalker cards, you'll find values for attack, defense and dominance. We'll focus on these later during combat. The lower part of each card shows the effects you can carry out right away. Which effects you choose to use is up to you, but they must be played in the order shown from top to bottom. If one card effect allows you to perform multiple actions, the order in which you resolve them is up to you. Some cards have effects that stay active over multiple rounds. In your turn, you place as many markers on the card as specified. At the end of the round, these cards are not discarded but instead placed above your player board. In each preparation phase, you remove one marker and may then carry out the corresponding effect, until there are no more markers left. Only then is the card discarded. Certain card effects place markers on the game board to indicate things like a combat group not being able to move this round. These markers are removed in the next preparation phase as mentioned earlier. Some card effects allow you to play an additional card from your hand. If you want to do this, play the original card first, then play the additional card. Both cards are placed below the player board in the same position, thus you don't miss out a turn. If you don't want to or can't play a card on your turn, draw a card from the deck into your hand and place a marker instead. This marker indicates that you have chosen not to play a card in that turn. Some cards allow your fighters to move across the board. How exactly you can move depends on your faction. The Woodwalkers may only move through forest areas, but these are connected by mountain ravines. You can move up to as many individual fighters to a neighboring forest as the card effect allows. For each fighter you can decide where to move them individually. The Ironclads always stay on the mountains and move through passes and tunnels. Ironclad fighters can only be moved as groups. For each allowed move, you may move a combat group from one mountain to another neighboring mountain. How many units you send across the mountain paths or leave behind is up to you. However, you are not allowed to split up a group to send it to several different mountains within a single action. Regardless of which faction you play, you can move a unit or group only to the next neighboring mountain or forest during your turn. Only a few special effects allow exceptions to this rule. Combats are triggered by card effects as well. Power and control over different areas on the board are key to winning the game. The Woodwalker chieftain aims to block the building of forges, while the Ironclad commander seeks to prevent the Woodwalkers from discovering and carrying away the powerful totems. Woodwalker units in forest regions at the edges of the board can neither attack nor be attacked. You control an area as soon as and for as long as at least one combat unit of yours is present there. The rule of thumb, anything that's round is a combat unit. The drill and forge foundations of the Ironclads are not combat units and do not provide control over a mountain. Also, forges cannot control areas, attack or be destroyed. However, if they are part of a fight with other Ironclad combat units, they provide a bonus. One attack damage boost against enemy units. Now here's how a combat works. Fights always occur between full combat units that are adjacent to each other, one in a forest, the other on a mountain. To initiate an attack, play an appropriate action card with the keyword attack. Both players then decide whether to wager a card and place it face down on the table, revealing them simultaneously. At this point, only the combat values count. This card will no longer be available as an action card for the time being. If you don't play a card, you automatically have card combat values of 0. In case of a tie, the attacker wins. Now compare your combat values. First, calculate your attack strength. For example, the Woodwalker has 3, while the Ironclads have 1. Add any additional modifiers, such as golems or forges, which each contribute +1. This brings the Ironclads to 3 as well. Subtract your opponent's defense from your calculated damage. For example, the Ironclad defends with 2, so they take 1 damage. That many Ironclad units are removed from the board and placed back in the player area. To destroy a golem, the Woodwalker must deal 2 damage to it. Now in my example that's not possible. The Woodwalker is attacked with 3 but has no defense, so he loses 3 units. If one player loses all their combat units in a fight, he loses the battle automatically. If both players lose all their combat units, then there's no winner. If both players still have units left, dominance values come into play. Each of your remaining fighters and golems adds 1 to your dominance. For example, the Ironclads have 2 plus 2 totaling 4 dominance. The Woodwalkers have 3 dominance from the units. You may also be able to use a card effect to increase your dominance. This must come from an action card, as the effect of combat cards are generally irrelevant, with a few exceptions. The player with the highest dominance value wins the battle. Now discard any cards you placed for the battle. Base cards are placed next to the discard pile and will be returned to your hand at the end of the round. The winner, in this case the Ironclads, can chase the enemy's combat units away and move them to an adjacent space of his own choice. They may do this even if it would normally be forbidden for the losing player to move. The affected player may have to bear the consequences of this. If the Woodwalkers were carrying a totem and are forced to flee, they drop it. It must be recovered at a later time. More on that in a bit. To recruit a golem, you must play an action card with the golem symbol. As mentioned before, forges can usually only be attacked or be part of a battle when combat units are present on the same space. However, the Woodwalkers can use a specific card to attack the forge and ferrum, and if they win, they collect 3 crystals in the process. If it's attacked alone, the Woodwalkers automatically win. Only if it's defended by ironclad combat units does the forge have an attack strength. The drill is not a combat unit, so it doesn't contribute to attack strength or dominance. However, if all ironclad combat units are destroyed in a location where the drill is present, the drill is also destroyed. Unlike forges or foundations, the drill itself can be specifically targeted and automatically destroyed if no ironclad combat units are nearby. If the drill is destroyed, it is moved back to ferrum. If the attacker still has surviving units and the drill had crystals loaded, he may take 1 from its cargo. Any remaining crystals are lost and must be returned to the supply. Since the cargo has been emptied, the marker on the drill track is reset. More on that in a moment. The drill is not a combat unit and is therefore moved with its own action. The drill's main purpose is to collect crystals, which are needed to build forges that will ultimately secure your victory. When it lands on a mountain that does not yet have a completed forge, move the marker on the drill track 1 space to the right, which triggers a reward. At the first level, you gain 2 crystals in your cargo area. This shows how many crystals your drill is carrying. These crystals are not yet available for use, as they are still on the way. The second level of the drill track rewards you with an additional crystal. You also get to look at the top card of your opponent's vision deck. You'll soon see why this gives you an advantage. You also gain a recruit, which you place on the area where your drill started its movement. At the third level, you're rewarded with another crystal, and you also draw a card from your draw deck into your hand. If you need to move the marker further to the right again, you simply take the level 3 bonus once more. If the drill lands on a mountain that already has a forge, it will automatically unload, even if the forge is built while the drill is already in place. You then move the crystals from the cargo area to the available crystal section. From now on, you may use them to build forges or recruit units. Immediately after unloading the drill, reset the drill marker to the starting position. If you have another movement remaining, you can even send it to another mountain right away. Forges and the foundations for them are no exceptions and are also built through card actions. Forges are constructed in 2 stages. First, you build the foundation on one of the outer mountains, for example using the base card expansion. The mountain must be controlled by your combat units. Then, with the build action, such as on the base card reinforcement, a foundation is converted into a forge. This costs you 5 available crystals. As soon as you have built the third forge, you win the game. Foundations do not affect combat and, like forges, cannot be destroyed. However, unlike foundations, forges have an effect on combat as they deal additional damage. Forges provide the added benefits that the more you build, the more opportunities you have to unload your drill. Initially, you only have the mountain in the middle called Farum, which is considered a forge in function but does not count toward the game objective of 3 forges. Additionally, more forges give you more options for where you can deploy new recruits. More on that soon. The counterpart to the Ironclads forges are the Woodwalkers totems. Once you have successfully collected 3, you win the game. You don't need to build them, instead you must find them and bring them to one of the outer forest areas. Each fighter can collect and transport 1 totem. If you have multiple movements in your turn, you may move a totem to an adjacent area and hand it over to another fighter who hasn't moved yet. That fighter can continue transporting it toward the destination. However, you must hurry. Once a totem is collected, time starts running out. If you don't manage to bring it to an outer forest by the end of the round, it gets flipped over. Its power fades. If you fail to bring the totem to the destination in the next round, it is removed from the board. Once a totem reaches an outer forest, it is considered secured. You then place it on your player board. If a totem is carried by units that lose a battle, they drop it, regardless of whether the units are completely eliminated or only forced to retreat. The totem must then be collected again from that spot. Now you may be wondering where to even find these totems. This is where the vision cards come into play. Your base card Visions with the Discover effect allows you to reveal a vision card from your hand. Vision cards indicate where the totems are located. The location name is at the top, and the position of the eye shows where on the board the location is. Unfortunately, these are always mountains, territory controlled by your enemy. To find and collect a totem, the location cannot be controlled by the Ironclads. Just to remind you, only their fighters and golems can control mountain areas. Additionally, your units cannot collect a totem from an outer forest, as that would mean the totem is already at its destination and thus secured. Way too easy. If these conditions are met, you can play the action card with the effect Discover. Reveal a vision card from your hand and place the totem on your units. Your opponent must always be able to see where totems have already been discovered and deduce where he could still prevent another find. Just to clarify, this is not allowed because your units are on an outer forest area. This is also not allowed because the location is controlled by your opponent. In such cases, you cannot play the corresponding vision card. If an effect refers to burning a vision card, it is discarded face down. Your opponent won't know which location is most likely no longer a totem site. If the totem was found on an inner mountain rather than on one of the edge mountains, you gain 3 crystals. The top left symbol on the corresponding vision card indicates this. After both players have alternated completing their 3 turns, the round ends. Take the Blade base cards back into your hand. Blade ongoing cards with markers are placed above your tableau. Any other special action cards that you played as actions or during battle go to the discard pile. Your hand limit is 8. If you have more cards in hand, discard special cards until you have 8. During the preparation phase, you will still draw 2 new cards. Vision cards do not count toward your hand limit. If you have any totems on the board, flip them so that the faded side is visible. If they are already flipped, remove them from the board. Finally, you can recruit new fighters. Each unit costs you 2 crystals. You may recruit as many as you can afford. The Ironclad recruits are placed on any mountain with a forge. The Woodwalker recruits are placed on outer forest areas. The end of the game is simple and I've already mentioned it before. The Woodwalkers must secure their 3rd totem, and the Ironclads must build their 3rd forge. The player who reaches his goal first wins the game. I hope you're now ready to dive into Ironwood and start playing. If you have found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And have you had the chance to play yet? Which faction do you prefer? The Ironclads or the Woodwalkers? With more content coming your way in English, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button to support the channel. Your feedback is always appreciated and helps me create even better content. Thanks for watching, and now enjoy your time with Ironwood.